What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Concussion Discussion Podcast, Episode 6. I'm your host, Austin Sherlock. I greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm recording this a little bit early. I guess it gives me more time to promote it and to share it before UFC 224. The reason I'm doing it early is because my producer, my best friend, my brother, he is going on his honeymoon with his beautiful wife, Jessie. So while this is an inconvenience, shout out to David and Jessie. Jessie's the one that thought of the name for the podcast, the Concussion Discussion. Shout out to her, and then shout out for David for all the hard work that he does. So enough with the soft stuff. Let's talk some fights. So we're going to talk Bellator 198, Fedor versus Frank Mir. And then, obviously, Dylan Dennis making his MMA debut. And then we are going to cover some current events, as per usual. And then I'm going to give my breakdown of UFC 224 in Brazil, Amanda Nunes versus Rocky Raquel Pennington. So, just going to start this thing by talking about Bellator 198. So, I'm going to work from top down. So Fedor versus Frank Mir. Well, this is a fight that has been in the making for 10 to 15 years. And it lived up to the hype, actually. I didn't think it would. I thought it would be a slow fight. I thought both fighters would be a little bit conservative due to their, Frank Mir being off 2 years and then Fedor coming off of a knockout loss from Matt Mitrione. And I thought they would maybe, I didn't think it'd be a boring fight, but they would play a conservative. But it was a crazy 48 seconds. That's all it lasted. Frank Mir met Fedor in the middle of the Bellator cage, hit him with a good shot, dropped him. Then Frank, engages. Fedor puts Frank Mir on his back, which was very crazy to see Fedor Emelianenko, probably, top 3 strikers in the heavyweight division ever, take down Frank Mir. And Frank said that his ego got to him, and he just got a little bit wild. So he got wild, and Fedor caught him with an uppercut as Frank was moving in, dropped him, and Frank was not able to recover, and Fedor finished the fight. So Fedor moves on to fight Chael Sonnen in the second round of the heavyweight tournament in Bellator. So I don't know if I've talked about this, but I have an issue with the heavyweight tournament in Bellator. So if you're going to do the tournament style, you have to keep the fans engaged. You have to keep it relevant. What Bellator has not done thus far is you have to make the fights close, right? At least maybe a month from each other. But when you're making these fights 2 to 3 months, you kind of lose focus as a fan. You lose focus that it's a heavyweight tournament. But then Bellator 199 is King Mo and Ryan Bader, the next round. So I guess that kind of makes it better, but this is kind of the first time that I've felt it being a legitimate tournament. Because you forget who won the previous round and so on and so forth. So it was a good fight, and I think Fedor versus Chael Sonnen is probably the best for the promotion. While I love Frank Mir, I thought Frank Mir versus Chael would be a really good fight. I think Fedor and Chael is probably the highest grossing fight for Fedor's career, to be honest, because Chael's he's a shit talker, and he'll make it fun. Then Emmanuel Sanchez defeats Sam Sicilia. He beat Sam Sicilia via arm triangle. Started off as a standing and got it to the ground. Won that 3 minutes and 52 seconds into the first round. Emmanuel Sanchez, he's a beast, man. He should be fighting for that featherweight title very soon. Rafael Lovato Jr. versus Gerald Harris. Lovato Jr., I say his name, but if you guys are not familiar, he's a white dude from Oklahoma. An absolute wizard on the ground. He gets it done via submission armbar, 1 minute in the first round. If you haven't seen that guy fight, please tune in to him. He's an absolute savage. And then Dylan Dennis versus Kyle Walker. So Dylan Dennis is Conor McGregor's boy, his training partner, his jiu-jitsu coach. I don't know if he's a coach or a training partner or whatever you want to call it. But Dylan Dennis came in after the first Nate Diaz fight that Conor had. After that loss to Nate Diaz, Dylan Dennis came in, who's a world champion jiu-jitsu player. And a lot of people are being very critical of his work. This is his MMA debut, not his professional MMA. Like, he's never fought MMA at all. He never fought an amateur. He never did any of that. He went straight from the jiu-jitsu world to mixed martial arts. And his mixed martial arts debut was in the second biggest promotion in the world. So, a lot of people are being critical. Yes, he ate some heavy left hands from Kyle Walker. Yeah, his stand-up didn't look great. Okay, I don't care about that. Dylan Dennis looked damn good. He went in there, and in your debut, a lot of people freak out, right? And a lot of people in their professional debut aren't being put on national television, which Dylan Dennis was. He went out there, he stayed calm, he looked stiff on the feet, that's fine. He pulled guard, and then won the fight via ankle lock. And then, after the fight, he did kind of come off pretty Conor McGregor-esque, very, I own this. I mean, you can literally just watch old Conor McGregor post-fight stuff and then watch Dylan Dennis. Look, Dylan Dennis is a savage. That's what you want, but I will not deny that I watched his post-fight interview stuff, and, I definitely cringed, that's for sure. But, you know what? He won his debut. He comes from a really good camp, so good for him. So that covers Bellator 198. Very straightforward. I was hoping for a little bit more of a climactic main event, but that didn't happen. What do you do? So now let's get into a few current events. So speaking of Bellator 198, Bellator averages 750,000 viewers over 2 platforms. So that aired on Paramount Network and CMT. So very interesting. A lot of people look at Bellator and they say, all right, well, the number 2 organization in the world, that's why they're not getting views. I disagree. I think it's that MMA is in a very weird lull right now. I'm worried about Bellator. I really am, because they have really good talent. I don't think they promote their brand as well as they could. But, yeah, I mean, 750,000 followers, it's not great. It does make me worry a little bit, but they just did get bought out by Paramount Network, and Paramount is obviously no slump in the television, movie, entertainment game. So maybe they have some stuff planned that us viewers, us fans, don't know about. But as of right now, 750,000 followers or viewers on free TV, that just kind of makes the threshold of acceptable. Not groundbreaking, not completely terrible, but it's acceptable. All right, Paul Felder versus James Vick for UFC Boise. This is very interesting. First thing when I see this is, oh my God, they're doing a UFC event in Boise. You're going to have 9 people that show up to the fight. I'm going to watch it on TV. I just don't know how many people in Boise, Idaho, are actually going to show up for this thing. That aside, James Vick has been asking for a big name. Paul Felder is a fairly big name. He's gone on a good streak as of late. I like this fight. I'll break it down when we get to that fight. But very cool fight. I think James Vick is going to get his wish, and then Paul Felder, that will further cement his name. I think James Vick right now is ranked number 12 or 13. I think Paul Felder's unranked. So Paul Felder has a bigger name. James Vick is ranked. So it's kind of a win-win situation. If Paul Felder wins that fight, then you have Paul Felder climbing into that top 15. If James Vick beats a big name in Paul Felder, then maybe that bumps him up 1 or 2 slots. But that's a fun fight. I'm excited to see that one. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, a.k.a. JJ, versus Tisha Torres, announced at UFC on Fox 30 in Calgary. Whoo! I have so many feelings about this fight, and unfortunately, none of them are good because I'm a fan of both girls. Joanna was 14-0, defending her title just a few short months ago against Rose Namajunas. Loses that first fight via first round KO, and then she gets the immediate rematch, which she deserves, and she loses that fight via unanimous decision, which I agreed with. Then you have Tisha Torres, who is just a monster, man, but she's coming off of a loss from Jessica Andrade, who is just a tank at that weight division at 115. Man, I hate to pick this fight this early, and I'm not going to because I've got to do my homework on this. But that's a damn good fight. JJ versus Tisha, the Tiny Tornado Torres. One of the greatest nicknames in the UFC right now. Quick turnaround for JJ, but I don't know, man. That is a fun fight. I'm going to have to do my research on that one a little bit more to give you my pick. Oh, man. Ray Borg out against Brandon Moreno. So Brandon Moreno gets Alexandre Pantoja. So Ray Borg was supposed to fight Brandon Moreno at UFC 223. Conor throws a dolly through a window, smashes the window. Part of that glass gets in Ray Borg's eyes. And then also, I just saw this a few hours ago. Ray Borg, his ex-manager, is suing him. It's crazy. So if you don't know anything about Ray Borg, man, God, I would love to meet that guy and just give him a hug right now. So he loses the fight against Demetrius Johnson. He's only 24. Young kid. Loses the fight against Demetrius Johnson. No shame in that. Everyone loses against Demetrius Johnson. It's all right. And then his comeback fight, he gets some glass in his eye, cannot fight. Oh, well, and then his son has a serious issue. Ray Borg was supposed to fight at UFC Chile, as I mentioned in the last episode, but his newborn son has some medical issues, some very serious medical issues, and now he's getting sued by his manager, his ex-manager, promotion, whatever it is. Look, man, leave those legal issues for later. Like, this guy's going through some stuff right now. But anyways, feel for Ray Borg. I'm not trying to get too sad on the podcast, but man, if you are not aware of Ray Borg's situation, man, it's such a bummer. But Brandon Moreno, who Ray Borg was supposed to fight, is fighting Alexandre Pantoja at UFC Chile. Good fight. Very fun fight. Both were on the same Ultimate Fighter season. This one, I will take Brandon Moreno. I can tell you that already right now. I love Pantoja, but I think Brandon Moreno gets it done. All right. Next current event, UFC and Nate Diaz in serious talks for August return. I'm ready to break your heart. I don't care. I do not care about this. The UFC and Nate Diaz have been in talks multiple times. They talked about a championship welterweight fight with Woodley, which makes no sense as far as, Nate Diaz has been ragdolled by every welterweight he's ever fought. He fought Conor the second time at welterweight at 170. Conor's not a 170er and lost convincingly in my mind. 3 rounds to 2, maybe 4 rounds to 1. I digress. But I don't care, man. Nate Diaz he's still a big name, obviously, but if you are inactive for 2 years and you're not doing anything, a lot of guys are freaking out about his return, about the fight with... I don't care about Nate Diaz, to be honest. He lost his flair. And it's not like Nate Diaz was some absolute world beater in the UFC. He's not. He's 21 and 10, 20 and 10. Not a great record. He's not an absolute world beater in the UFC. He's a big name. He was a big name before Conor. Now he's a big name, but before that, it's Nate Diaz. You're gonna tune in to see him, but it's nothing that's gonna blow your hair back. He's not doing anything crazy. And then Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis is rescheduled for UFC 226, which is in July, International Fight Week. I'm so glad this fight got rescheduled. I'm very interested to see where they're going to put this fight on that card, whether it's going to be the opener to the pay-per-view, whether it's going to be the FS1 prelim headline, or the, God forbid, the Fight Pass headliner. Oh, God, who knows? But that'll be interesting. And then, Israel Adesanya got a fight against Brad Tavares. Very good fight. I think it's a little early, to be honest, for Israel Adesanya. I'm not saying that I'm doubting his skills at all. I think he's a legit 185er. But Brad Tavares, who has just been on an absolute tear, I don't know how the hell that fight goes. I will break down that one later. But that is booked for the Ultimate Fighter finale show headliner. So that'll be a good one. So I think that is it for current events, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and get into UFC 224. All right. So now I'm going to break down all these fights. I wish I had the time to do so, but I do not. I have a life just like all of you guys, and I'm trying to keep it short and sweet and simple for you guys. So I'm going to start with the main card, which is Lyoto Machida versus Vitor Belfort, both Brazilians. So this fight is in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Belfort versus Machida. I'm going to take Machida. Look, this is a weird fight. I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't know who the hell else, what else you're going to do with these guys. But I will take Machida via unanimous decision. If Machida wasn't Brazilian, I would say maybe split decision, or maybe he might get robbed. But this plays into Machida's favor. He's definitely not the big name in Brazil as Vitor Belfort, but I will take Machida unanimous decision. This is the fight I'm having trouble with. Brian Kelleher versus John Lineker. Holy crap, I love both guys. The only time that John Lineker has really ever looked outclassed was against TJ Dillashaw. John Lineker's actually 3-4 years younger. I think he's 27, and Brian Kelleher's 31. I love Brian Kelleher. I love his social media. He's a funny guy. He can rap his ass off. So go check him out on Instagram if you haven't already. But in this fight, you've got the number 6 in the world, John Lineker, versus unranked Brian Kelleher. I would love to see Brian Kelleher win this fight. What I think happens is John Lineker probably wins via third round TKO. I think it's a little bit too much too soon, but what do you expect? Lineker's coming off of a loss, and, you got to give him a good fight for him in his hometown. And then Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Cooper. So Mackenzie Dern is her second fight in the UFC. Won her last fight via split decision. Mackenzie Dern is a jiu-jitsu wizard. Amanda Cooper, she's all right. Nothing that's going to thoroughly impress you. She's 4-3. I will take Mackenzie Dern. I'll take Dern. I will take Dern via unanimous decision. Dern's wrestling is still in question. In her last fight, she was good on the ground once it got to the ground, but her wrestling, getting the fight to the ground, will be the issue. But I will take Dern via unanimous decision. And then Jacare Souza versus Kelvin Gastelum. This is an interesting fight. So you have Jacare Souza, number 2 in the world, number 5, Kelvin Gastelum. So Kelvin is undoubtedly, he's a 170-pound fighter. He's a welterweight. He's a natural welterweight. He's a thick 85er. Real thick. Thicker than a Snicker. But this is a very interesting fight, more so for Kelvin, but also for Jacare. So let me start with Kelvin. Kelvin is a top 5 fighter if he can make the weight at 170, which he's had problems with. He can be a top 5 fighter and at any given day, a legitimate title contender challenger. But he can't make the weight at times, so he moves up to 185. So he beats Vitor Belfort, knocks him out, and that fight got overturned to a no contest because that was in Brazil. It got turned over because of marijuana or something. It's not performance enhancing. It's a silly rule, but what do you do, right? That's a commission. He loses to Chris Weidman. He beat Tim Kennedy. He beat Michael Bisping right after Michael Bisping lost his world title. So Kelvin is a savage. But the big question here is if Kelvin loses this fight against the number 2 in the world, he has to move back down to 170. He lost against Weidman, who was number 3 in the world at the time, I believe, number 2 or number 3. If he loses to 2 top 3 guys, that's got to be a message that says, look, these boys are too big for you. And if you don't believe me, tune into the fights and just see really how small Kelvin is compared to these guys. Now, he's powerful. His striking is great, and he's got really good jiu-jitsu. But when you're facing a guy like Chris Weidman with his wrestling or Jacare Souza with his jiu-jitsu, that's next level stuff. If he wins this fight, good for him, and he stays in that title contention. I think he will fight for a title this calendar year. But if he loses, he really has to consider going back down to 170. And then for Souza, what if you do if you're Jacare Souza? You know, he beat Derek Brunson. You know, good for him. He's ranked number 2 in the world. I really think this fight's a title eliminator. If I have to give you a pick right now, I will say Kelvin Gastelum gets it done, which is crazy. I cannot believe I'm making that pick. But I like to give an underdog pick each card. And Kelvin Gastelum is the plus 200 underdog, something around there. Cannot believe I'm saying that right now, but I think the boxing of Kelvin Gastelum will get it done. And then on to the main event, Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington. Holy crap, this card as a whole frustrates me, guys. It frustrates me because I don't think the UFC is doing all that they can to market Amanda Nunes. So let's flash back to UFC 207. You guys remember that one? You mean Amanda Nunes versus Ronda Rousey? And all of the UFC's marketing was in Ronda Rousey, and no one knew who Amanda Nunes was. And Amanda Nunes comes in and starches her within a minute. Yeah, that's an issue. And Amanda Nunes and Raquel Pennington are both, I'm not trying to be controversial here. I'm just saying it how it is. Both are openly gay women. And this is an opportunity for the UFC to jump on. This is a market that, if you're trying to expand the brand, get more people in. Give that more marketing. Instead of giving Ronda Rousey all the marketing for her comeback, give Amanda Nunes her credit for being the first openly gay woman to fight in the UFC. Promote the shit out of that. I don't care if you got to put some rainbows on it or whatever. I don't care what you have to do. Her girlfriend also fights in the UFC. That's a whole new market. It might take time to build that market, yes, of course, but that's a whole market that you don't have right now. That said, Raquel Pennington hasn't fought in nearly 2 years since she beat Miesha Tate, so it's kind of hard to really boast on Raquel Pennington's resume as of late. And then there's also something I want to bring up. I wish I realized this, but one of the greatest podcaster, analyst, journalist, call him what you want, Luke Thomas, in the game, did this for me while I listened to his podcast. So I want to bring this up. Last few fights for Amanda Nunes. So she just beat Valentina Shevchenko via split decision. Okay, so Valentina Shevchenko, she moved down to 125. That says something that she doesn't think she can compete at 135. Ronda Rousey, she beat Ronda Rousey within the first round, first minute. Ronda Rousey retired. She beat Miesha Tate to win the title. Miesha Tate was the champion who beat Holly Holm. Holly Holm beat Ronda Rousey. A little bit of MMA math for you. She beat her in the first round via submission. Miesha Tate retired. Fight before that, Valentina Shevchenko. She won via third round unanimous decision. So she beats the same girl twice, arguably the best girl at 125 right now, and then she retires two of the all-time greats. She beat Jermaine Durandame, who also beat Holly Holm. Just her resume is insane. All that said, I will take Amanda Nunes. It's a 5-round fight. I will take Amanda Nunes via, let me think about this, late second, early third KO. Yeah, I'm happy with that one. Late second, early third KO. So that covers everything UFC 224, Bellator 198, which was fun to watch. Although I didn't get to watch all of it, but I got to watch the replay. I was getting my MRI done, as most of you guys are aware. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and tune in to UFC 224. It's not a great card, but there's some good fights on there. Until next time, enjoy. Cheers.